Right. So we had the chance to talk a couple of days ago in Incheon about this topic. I will not go into detail in this presentation since I have only about 15 minutes. So I wanted to share with you what we have done so far and what are the benefits of the new internet, and also to look at the various technologies that are going to benefit from IPv6 and specifically blockchain. So I will skip some of the slides that are not applicable in this place. So basically, the internet has been supported by the US government, especially DoD, back in the 50s and 60s, in order to develop what is called now the ARPANET. So that's the Advanced Research Agency, which was behind also Apollo, as well as the internet. So, and coincidentally, they were opened back in July 1769, and the internet was opened first time on September 2nd, 69 as well. And the address space was only 256 IP addresses, so 2 to the power of 8, because at that time it was just research network, so people thought you will not need that many mainframes in order to do that. But unfortunately, within a couple of years, more than 500 mainframes have been sold in the US, so the address space was not enough. So a call for review of the internet protocol has been done. And then the two gentlemen you see there, Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn, have designed on the back of a piece of paper in a McDonald's shop what TCP IP should be. But it took 10 years to convince everyone to move from ARPANET into the internet, which happened in 1981. And still in 1981, it took 1 year to convert the 256, I think 500 ARPA routers, as well as, at that time it was not routers, we just switches, and then get everyone on IPv4, which took about 12 months because a lot of people didn't understand what this new protocol is. So it's always when you transition from one protocol to the other one, it takes a lot of time. But unfortunately, by 85, the US government itself decided to shut down the internet, okay, for some other reasons. I don't think I need to go into these details, especially that my presentation is recorded, so I have to watch what I'm saying. So between 85 and 91, new protocols, I don't know if you think most of you are born way later than the creation of the internet, especially the ladies. So one protocol basically was invented that was X25, which later on has been used also for ATM. I don't know if you remember ATM. It was kind of, quality of service. So it was created by the telecom world, supported by the US government, but also by the ITU and so on, which was at that time also a little revolution, but it was a telecom-oriented thing. And it didn't want to give access to anyone, so you have to be a professional organization. Then in 91, Al Gore made a very nice joke on the internet, saying that he invented the internet for political purposes. At that time, they were the elections together with Bill Clinton. And it picked up right away because he opened the NSFNet, which was the internet at that time. And as soon as the internet was opened, so we looked at the address space and we saw that Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn were handing out IP addresses for free. It's called legacy address space. So anyone that wanted to deploy the internet, because it was shut down, it became an industry initiative. It's no more, let's say, internet, let's say, governments or standardization bodies like the ITU to do that. Hence, the internet became an industry initiative, which was the best thing to do. And Al Gore has instituted that the FCC should propagate the message to all of the standardization bodies around the world, especially the regulators, not to touch the internet anymore, because they already messed up with it. That's why the internet became very open and industry-oriented, no regulators and so on and so forth, which had an implication later on that all of a sudden the government wake up and they see something which is, let's say, widely used and not regulated and not controllable. Cybersecurity has become also immense later on. So by the immediate adoption of the internet, the address space was already eaten up by 50%, hence the call for a new version. And the 4 versions were proposed, so V6, 7, 8, and 9. And in the end, V6 was selected. As a matter of fact, the 7, 8, and 9, they were not even proposed as protocols. They were proposed as alternative solutions, primarily to embed IPv4 in the new versions, which is not very good because we want to have a clean slate approach to the internet. So we saw V6 as a real production protocol, while IPv4 is a research protocol. But still it has evolved and has been adopted as a commercial solution. It's very rare that you have a solution which is a research solution to become a commercial one. So the production one has put a lot of stress, especially at that time. The investment on the internet was about $10 trillion worldwide. So upgrading such a massive infrastructure was not that feasible. So some clever guys have introduced what is called the network address translation, which means that you get a fake IP address, so an internal IP address. That's why in this room I'm going to ask you, anyone has his own IP address, IPv4? Anyone has a phone number? Of course. So what's the difference between an IP address and phone number? None. It's the same thing. So if you don't have your IP address, then basically you cannot do end-to-end or peer-to-peer. And one of them is blockchain. Okay? So it's fundamental that the technology has also to be visible, source to destination, that you know what kind of IP address you have. And then you can play with the address to do certain things like blockchain, because you know who are the devices from A to B, and then you don't have to have a third party in between. And currently, basically, the internet has become a monopoly by a lot of companies. So instead of that, people are empowered to talk to each other directly. So you have to go through a third party. Okay, so blockchain cuts out the third parties because they're expensive, they're manipulative, and so on and so forth. So this is a fundamental shift that we want to do. And a lot of people didn't want to have that happen. So in few words, basically the address space is really fundamental. And we have made it highly auto-configurable, especially if you want to deploy millions of IoT devices and so on and so forth. You don't want to send an engineer for such a thing, because that's one of the things that's very expensive for the telecom operators, especially for the end user and the enterprise, to do this work themselves. And then move from broadcast to multicast. Broadcast in the wireless world is very expensive because it eats half of the spectrum for 3G, 4G, 5G. And by doing multicast, in this case, you will directly talk only to the people that are partners in that mailing list, to get the information. And then the wireless world was obviously the first adoption of IP, as at the beginning, when 3GPP has been installed by IEEE in Europe, getting all the operators around the world to move to the wireless internet, they wanted to have a solution only for the ISPs. So when we finished the release of IPv6 in '98, 3GPP was installed also in the same months. So I went to see the head of IEEE, who was at the same time the chairman of 3GPP, and told him, look, there's already half a billion people using the internet, and these are the smart people in the world. And you don't want them to be part of this one. So if you put the IP protocol, in this case, you will have an open source wireless internet. But at that time, they didn't want to do that because they wanted to be a business wireless internet, not an open one. Especially they had the function called IMS. So this is the internet management system, so that they can create their own websites, and the ISPs will be offering their services to their own customers, but they are not interconnecting with other ISPs. So it took about 6 months to convince them that They can do that with IMS, but still have IP, which proved to create basically the magic worldwide solution, especially with Apple in 2008, launching the smartphone, and the rest of the world basically went wireless. And the other feature, which is quite important, I think I have a little stuck here with many things. Can I ask Johnny to come around? He has left the place. I cannot move it because I have some lock-in devices here. I think there are some new windows that have opened. So basically, two things are very important: is privacy, which we don't have in IPv4. Now you can go back. I'll finish with this one. So one of them is privacy, which we don't have in IPv4. So it's only when you have NAT, you have a certain obscurity on the internet, but still any hacker can find your MAC address, which is basically the identity of any device, which is reflected into your name and email address and so on and so forth. So here with IPv6, we have created two IPv6 addresses automatically by the operating system. So we could convince Microsoft and Google to add a function called privacy address with a protocol, which is only about 3 pages, that the MAC address will be randomized automatically. So you'll get two IPv6 addresses, one privacy address and the other one is a global end-to-end address, which you never use unless you have an application, in this case like a blockchain. So this is where blockchain people have to understand how to use this end-to-end IPv6 address, which for the time is still in progress as work. But the privacy one, when you connect to the internet, you connect with the privacy address. In this case, any guy like Google and so on will know that you have IPv6, but he doesn't know that it's you. Okay, so this is a fundamental shift from the current internet, where everyone would know who you are, especially you get all kind of services coming up to you. You're looking for something, and they will offer you something else. So by having this anonymity, in this case, you will get a general response, not a sponsored response. All right. Then by having this end-to-end model with IPv6, you can do many things that we cannot do today. So all kind of peer-to-peer applications. It used to be, Napster at the beginning, and everyone, shut it down because you could use Napster, to sell, let's say, to steal music and so on and so forth, which gave a very bad connotation to peer-to-peer. So now we don't call it peer-to-peer, we call it end-to-end. So then you had BitTorrent, which is the basis for blockchain as well. So the design of blockchain is based on BitTorrent, which is basically an end-to-end service. But also BitTorrent has a negative, let's say, brand. And that's why you should not talk about peer-to-peer for blockchain, you should talk about end-to-end. Okay, just be careful with this terminology. Otherwise people, they might think, oh, this is the old problem with IPv4. You're introducing it again into IPv6, huh? Okay? So you have to watch what you say. But this will really open the innovation widely, the way it should be, to empower the end users. As you say in blockchain, we want people to own their content and also to sell it and to make some money out of it, okay? Which you cannot do today. So you have to go through a third party to do that. So in the future, you will have to have your own applications which you can design. So this is where developers have to understand how IPv6 functions to create for end users personalized applications or apps. Okay, so I haven't seen a lot of developers doing this. So the biggest application we have at stake is blockchain, but still there is a bit of work to be done in this sector as well. So the end result is that currently, when you said you didn't have any IP address, you are in the luggage class, huh? Okay? So you don't exist. It's only the routers that have routable IP address. Routable IP address means the router will know that this server has that IPv4 address, which is visible on the internet, and he sends your data or whatever, or your message you're getting, and he would send it to you because he would know that this hidden IPv4 address, which is kind of fake IP address, is the only communication. But if somebody wants to contact you directly, the router will say, no, I don't know this guy. So the guy who's receiving the message from the other side, he will not be able to get the information back to you. And this is where security fails, because security only works when they know what is the source IP address and what is the destination IP address, and they have to be routable. That's why we don't have security on the internet. That's why your email is basically in the clear. So you can imagine when you receive a letter, it is an envelope. And you have the feeling, I'm not allowed to open it because it's not coming to me. So the post office has civilized us not to cheat. There are a few guys that cheat and open the envelopes with whatever. But in the internet, because we don't have security, because of this, let's say, fake IP addresses, so security protocols like SSL and LTE, fail because the source IP address cannot talk to the destination IP address. That's why you don't have security. That's why your emails are in the clear, and anyone can read them. So watch what you're writing in your email, especially if you have issues with other countries and so on and so forth. Your emails is easily readable, and nobody knows this. Okay, so what you're writing. Huh? So anyone that's using IPv6 today, you're already in business class. And I know that 9 million South Koreans are using IPv6 without knowing it. Especially developers, they don't know it. So they are really wasting innovation time in order to be a pioneer in developing end-to-end solutions. And the talent in this country is quite immense. You just have to know and study this thing in order to do that. So down the road, we'll have IPv6 only because we have to divorce from IPv4 in the future. We don't want to have an internet with IPv4, NAT, and IPv6. That's just waste of energy and waste of updating and investment, especially that the IPv4 address space is no more existent. So we have already lost the address space back in 2011. So it's only the ISPs that do have address space that are still functioning, but they won't scale themselves. So if you don't have any address space and you have new customers, you cannot connect them at all. No? That's why they have to use IPv6 for such. So it's a fundamental upgrade that we have to do that. So in terms of deployment on a worldwide basis, by far China is number one, which has 760 million IPv6 users, followed by India, which is 400 million. In India, it's only one ISP called Reliance Jio Wireless doing 4G and now 5G. As to South Korea, there are 9 million, so it's not bad. But the coverage is the penetration is about 24%. Okay, so no, it's 18%. Now, I was looking the other day on the penetration in North Korea, and I was astonished to see that North Korea has IPv6 100%. Now, since Google is not going into North Korea, we don't know how many people are using IPv6. So I would expect that North Korea already using IPv6, and we cannot see who is doing that. Because the same thing applies to China. That's why you don't see it is fully green, because Google cannot access the markets in China. So they can access only Hong Kong and Macau. But when you look at the numbers coming from the regulator in China, and you have a website, and it's constantly updating how many people are there, you have 761 million IPv6 users in China, with a penetration which is about 70%. But when you look at North Korea, then you see that they have 100% coverage, which is quite amazing. So just for that purpose, I would expect that the North Koreans are using that for whatever purposes. Hacking whom? I don't think they will hack China, but they might hack somebody in the south, or maybe some other countries. on the east side. I'm not going to put any names because I'm recording here. I'm recorded. I've got to watch what I'm saying. So what happened is I was here back in 2001, and I worked with ETRI. A professor there at that time was Kim. You know, he got 50% of this population is called Kim. And the Minister of Communication at that time, and at that time, I don't know if you remember, there was this IT 8369 strategy to deploy, IPv6. And as a matter of fact, Korea was #1 in deploying IPv6 at that time, until 2005, 2006. But somehow the government and the ISPs, they said, well, we are the only one deploying IPv6, so how about the other countries? So all of a sudden they make the decision to stop using IPv6. It's only in the last 3-4 years that they have started to reopen it, but slowly. So the call to basically to the mayor of Incheon, where we had this first conference, is basically to get IPv6 back on track, because Incheon has a blockchain strategy, and it would be a lot easier and a lot simpler now to do blockchain in this area. So I don't think I need to go beyond this one unless I can flick through some of the things. So like the impact on business on a worldwide basis will be about $10 trillion on all kind of sectors, so especially manufacturing, government, and so on and so forth. And maybe a few words on the web generation to explain, the various versions of web generation. So the first one is, as known from the, I had the chance to meet Tim Berners-Lee a couple of times. And the first one, he calls himself Web 1.0, which is the first HTML service he did. And then one guy called Tim O'Reilly, has deployed for fun the first conference called Web 2.0 without any protocol. It was just basically conferences as soon as YouTube and Facebook and so on. So it was, with images and music and that kind of stuff. That Tim Berners-Lee didn't expect it to happen so quickly. So he made conferences and made the millions of dollars out of these conferences. And since he was kind of pissed off, he said, okay, I'll start now Web 3.0, which is the famous semantic web. It didn't fly that much. And in the meantime, we are working with Dave Raggett, who is one of his assistants on Web of Things, because XML is too heavy for IoT. So I think we'll have a protocol coming up in the next couple of months. And then as of late, Kevin Wood, who was one of the co-inventors of Ethereum and left, and he is promoting Web 3. Okay, so you can deploy Web 3 for blockchain. It's a marketing approach. The web itself is decentralized, but currently it's kind of monopolized. So you want to empower everyone to be on the internet. So by combining IPv6 and blockchain, then you can call it Web 3. So it's a marketing approach. It's not a technology thing. Unless the nodes of blockchain are not deploying IPv6, then in this case they will work only on IPv4. So this is where we have to work on the nodes to deploy IPv6. So because the nodes are part of the internet, and these are routers that are with the miners. So we've got a bit of work to do in this area. And I think I stop here. Thank you. Well, or maybe I can take maybe one or two easy questions. Okay, I'll take difficult questions. Or maybe I'll ask you questions. Who is using IPv6 in this room? From the 9 million, we should hit 1 or 2.
9? Oh, I'm not Korean.
You're not Korean,
I'm
yes?
one of those 700 million.
Make them jealous.
I think I'm using IPv6 because this is smartphone. It's a iPhone 14 that must support IPv6 for now. Most modern devices, smart devices now support IPv6 and all the
In China.
in China, and also all the soft applications on mobile phone, it supports IPv6, which is it's a how to say, regulation
Yes.
rule in China now.
So it shows IPv6 whenever you connect to any application.
Yeah.
It shows
in China.
in
Yeah.
certain applications, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is really an industry first in China. When you hit any application that supports IPv6, it will show it on the device that you are using IPv6. Although you have an app that you can check, and I did here, so there is no IPv6 in this place. Just download my IP, and you will see which places, which websites and so on are supporting IPv6. Second, any questions from your side? So who is interested in learning how IPv6 works? Anyone? No, don't tell me, nobody. Wow, thank you. You saved the day.
IPv6 considered as I think IPv6 is considered in infrastructure technology. What's the relationship between BSV and IPv6?
Yeah, so I didn't do a very good work in explaining this myself. So BSV is the real blockchain application which looks at the, maybe I should have shown you that slide because it would be a lot easier. So what you have here is basically the first killer application of blockchain is bitcoins, all kind of X coins, which is more attractive to a lot of people because they want to make money. It's speculation, Las Vegas on the internet. So you have a lot of people that lose money, a lot of people that commit suicide as well. We don't want to be part of that. So what we are interested in is, the obvious one is the smart contracts. That's the first thing that's really successful. So you have James with us, who's going to talk about it. But more importantly is you can do all kind of things. So IoT, M2M, government, health, science. These are real applications that really benefit society and so on and so forth. Why it is important? Because security is very difficult to do on the internet. And cybersecurity is even heavier. So this is the first time we have something where we can deploy application with a certain security and also with certain verification. And this will be replacing what we don't have, proper security and proper, let's say, defense on the internet. Okay? Right. That was a tough question, by the way. Yeah. Thank you.